The cameras were already rolling when Connor Hensley stepped forward. Lights tracked his movement as he walked across the obsidian platform of the Grand Chamber of Keltris, flanked by columns of polished blackstone that shimmered under the ceremonial illumination. Behind him, the massive seal of the Galactic Council loomed, etched in platinum and suspended above the stage like a silent judge. The chamber was at full capacity. 3,000 delegates, clustered in their assigned tiers, watched in silence. Representatives from hundreds of species, some breathing through valves, some blinking in syncopated rhythms, others simply staring. Every movement Hensley made was captured and broadcast live, feeding into networks across systems. Billions were watching. He paused at the center, beneath the focal beam. A thin veil of static rippled on the outer edges of the chamber's projection field, signaling that every screen, every lens, every eye in the known galaxy was now on him. Connor Hensley didn't clear his throat. He didn't blink. His voice emerged with calm weight, not loud, measured. Today is not about concessions. It's not about quiet victories along contested lines or whispered accords in shadowed halls. He let the words settle. A few alien heads tilted. One of the Velatari, scaled, long-necked, with dull bronze plating, turned toward his translator drone, intrigued. Today is about presence, about standing here, as equals. The Earth did not arrive at this moment by force. We arrived through consistency, through the deliberate choice to speak, even when no one answered. On the third tier, a human envoy, Lieutenant Mason Barlow, watched, eyes unblinking. He knew this speech. He'd helped Hensley refine it. He had never seen it delivered like this. We chose patience when we had range, Hensley continued. We chose listening when we had certainty, and we chose peace because we've carried the cost of war. The silence in the chamber wasn't passive. It was razor-thin. From the high dais, the Alto Chancellor rose. The movement was subtle. No words, no nod. Just the upward motion of the Council's most powerful figure. Towering, encased in ceremonial white armor with deep crimson filigree. He did not descend the stairs. He did not approach. He raised one hand. The effect was immediate. Protocol drones halted. The projection field froze. Security units, clad in gold-trimmed plating with red visors, stepped forward from hidden alcoves. The illumination over Hensley dimmed. The spotlight shifted, now split between the envoy and the Chancellor. "Connor Hensley!" The Chancellor's voice thundered, deepened and amplified by an implanted resonator. "You stand accused of subversion and illicit technological manipulation in neutral zones." Gasps cut through the chamber like energy discharges. Across the lower tiers, representatives turned to one another, confused, startled. Some instinctively reached for translator or biometric pads. One of the Axiri, avian-featured and hunched with optic ridges pulsing blue, stood in agitation before quickly sitting again. Hensley didn't move. His hands were still resting on the edges of the podium. The spotlight flickered slightly. Subversion? His voice was calm, steady. What evidence supports this? Why was it not presented through diplomatic channels? Silence. No screens displayed any documentation. No visual exhibits appeared on the central hollows. Just the Chancellor's voice again. This council can no longer turn a blind eye. The guards descended from the upper levels. Their synchronized footfalls echoed like war drums in a hall meant for peace. On the third row, Barlow stood from instinct. One of the council security agents turned toward him, hand near his weapon. Barlow froze. "Connor." A whisper came from someone in the human delegation, but it was lost under the growing hum of tension. "You're making a mistake," Hensley said, stepping away from the podium, not backing down, just adjusting, posture still proud. "Not just against Earth. This is a fracture you won't be able to seal." Two guards reached him. One placed a hand on his arm. Hensley shook it off, not violently, just firmly. There was no trial, No council vote, no evidence. Still no reply. Across the chamber, the delegation from the Jal Confederacy, a feline humanoid species with bioluminescent skin and mirrored pupils, exchanged glances. Their ambassador, Theron Val, blinked once and lowered his eyes. In the far upper tier, a trio of Trescari watched impassively, insectoid, multi-limbed, with mandibles tucked behind retractable masks. One of them let out a sharp trill, neither approval nor protest, just observation. A faint mechanical whir signaled the activation of the execution field. The podium retracted. The floor beneath Hensley split into a hexagonal platform. From the sides, twin pylons emerged, each no taller than a man, crackling faintly with uncharged energy. Hensley didn't step away. He stood tall. He looked directly into the nearest camera drone, then to the Chancellor. Peace was a choice. You've chosen otherwise. The light surged. For a fraction of a second, the chamber filled with a low-frequency pulse. The kind that doesn't register as sound, only pressure. The kind that vibrates in your chest and teeth. Then, white. No theatrics, no flash. Just a pulse of energy, precise and terminal. Hensley collapsed mid-sentence, his body falling limply across the platform, smoke rising from the exposed gaps in his diplomatic robes. A translator device slipped from an envoy's lap and shattered on the floor. The sound was deafening. No one moved. The guards stepped back in sync. The execution pylons retracted. The body remained. No voice called for protocol. No screen blacked out. No apology was issued. From the council's platform, the Chancellor turned and resumed his seat. Delegates of allied races, like the Stern Varnu, a species of amphibious tacticians known for emotionless speech, sat in stony silence. No reaction, no visible discomfort. Among the Raithari, reptilian bipeds with translucent ridged skulls, one delegate gave a slow, shallow nod, unreadable in meaning but unmistakably deliberate. On the second tier, an Uskari representative, broad-shouldered, granite-skinned, with a cluster of optical nodes embedded in his temples, turned his gaze to the human delegation. His expression was neutral, not sympathetic, not aggressive, just watching. Barlow remained standing, his jaw clenched. A security agent positioned himself directly beside him, hand resting now on the weapon. The feed remained open. Across orbital colonies, terraformed moons, drifting mining freighters, every human connected to a stream saw it. In silence, not disbelief, something worse, violation. And in distant corners of the galaxy, among species long held under the heel of council order, something shifted. The execution wasn't just an act of domination. It was a reminder. A broadcast reminder. To the Council's core worlds, it was procedure. To Earth, it was the execution of a diplomat. To the rest of the galaxy, it was a warning. And to Earl King, watching from the command deck of the Lunar Defense Base, it was the end of diplomacy. The room was silent when the feed cut. General Earl King didn't blink. He sat motionless in the center of the Lunar Command's war room, the light from the massive main screen reflecting off the rigid lines of his face. Around him, officers shifted, some averting their gaze, others frozen. On screen, the last frame lingered for a heartbeat. Connor Hensley collapsing to the floor, smoke rising from his chest, his robes crumpling in real time. No static, no final commentary, just silence. Colonel Zhang, his operations aide, broke first. "Sir," King raised one hand, slow. "Don't speak." He stood. The room adjusted with him. In that moment, it didn't matter that the Council of Kyltris was half a galaxy away. The blast had hit here too. "Lock the room," he ordered. "Clear, non-critical personnel." Technicians and junior officers filed out fast. No chatter, no questions. As the steel doors sealed behind them, King walked toward the central console and tapped in his command key. "Connect me to EarthSec High Command. Emergency protocol, priority override. Zhang hesitated, then nodded and turned to carry it out. Across the lunar command base, klaxons didn't sound. No red lights strobed. This wasn't an attack. It was worse. The death of Hensley hadn't triggered defense grids or orbital shields, it had shattered Earth's diplomatic spine. And it had done so publicly. From deep within the Pacific Continental Hub, the Earth Security Council came online. One by one, their holograms flickered into the room. Director Nolan Nassar of Intelligence, Admiral Jonah Merrick of the Orbital Navy, Secretary Harold Veltri from Strategic Affairs. Others followed. None looked composed. General King, Veltri spoke first, voice already tight. The feed was real? Yes, King replied. It wasn't pre-rendered. There were no edits. They killed him on a live feed. Nassar leaned forward in his projection. No trial, no motion, no evidence packet. Just an accusation and then execution, King cut in. Broadcasted across the core systems. Merrick slammed a hand on the edge of his interface. Then we mobilize. Bring the fleet online. Keltris should be dust by morning. No, King snapped. That stopped them. The room went quiet again. You want retaliation? King continued, stepping into the center of the holopad. Then you wait. You wait because we're not going to scream and burn like animals. That's what they expect. That's what they want. You expect us to sit on this? Merrick shot back. They executed our envoy. He was Earth. That stage was ours, and they stained it with blood. King looked at him evenly. Connor Hensley was my friend, my mentor. I sat at his table when I was a junior officer. You don't get to lecture me about what that man represented. He paced once, hands behind his back. But you will listen. Then give us the order, Nassar said coldly. What's your play? King stopped. The screens shifted as Zhang brought up a secured interface. 14 red nodes blinked across a galactic map, each in neutral or disputed zones, some hidden in asteroid fields, others buried beneath mining operations or shadow markets. Activate Project Asher, King said. Zhang didn't move. Sir, that's not a field-ready directive. King's eyes didn't waver. It is now. Across Earth's secure channels, encryption servers awakened. Relay satellites reoriented. Embedded agents received fragments of activation codes split across multiple transmissions. In deep orbit, one listening post near the edge of the Crixon Belt, a place where no formal delegation dared tread, lit up. The cell there didn't hesitate. The protocol known as Annihilation Sequence Hierarchical Emergency Response came alive. Back in the council chamber, Earth's absence had already sparked fractures. On the colony station of Argus Fu, located at the fringe of the galactic spine, protests erupted. Screens replayed Hensley's last words over and over, uncensored. The crowd outside the council's local embassy swelled by the hour. Civil guards, human volunteers, stood shoulder to shoulder, forming a silent perimeter while chants echoed from the civilian crowds. In the mining complex of Fornax Delta, entire work shifts halted. Miners, most of them former EarthSec personnel turned colonists, stood in canteens and tunnels watching the replay on delay. Not one voice was raised. But helmets were laid down like headstones, and old sealed weapons caches, forgotten for decades, were quietly unlocked. Even in the floating arcologies of Titan's upper atmosphere, students gathered in learning domes stared in disbelief. Professors paused lectures mid-sentence. Some wept. Others, veterans of Earth's last outer ring conflict, simply stood still. Everywhere, humans understood. Not just that a man had died, but that diplomacy had died with him. In the strategy chamber, Nassar breathed out through clenched teeth. You really think your plan can work without starting open war? I don't want war, King said. I want collapse. Quiet. Systemic. Irreversible. He tapped the screen, enlarging the data nodes. We hit their supply chains. Not with torpedoes, with proof. Financial fraud, political blackmail, suppressed rebellions. We unseal everything. We flood the systems with the Council's own sins. And when they come for us, they won't know where to look. We built this framework 20 years ago, Connor and I both. Veltri stepped forward in the feed, his expression haunted. You think Hensley knew this day would come? King's jaw clenched. He hoped it wouldn't. But he built the fallback plan anyway, just in case reason failed. Zhang spoke up from the side console. We're getting reaction feeds from the ceremony, decrypted across all monitored species. Initial scans show inconsistency. Show me. One by one, Zhang brought up the files. Most were raw diplomatic response logs. Some were encrypted internal summaries. The Varkathi Coalition, a species of dense-boned quadrupedal tacticians, issued a neutral statement. No condemnation, no surprise. The Irkan Dominion, bioluminescent aquatic beings with hive-linked consuls, filed a formal note of concern, but referenced ongoing concerns regarding Earth's trajectory. And the Dravanti Core, a long-standing rival block of Earth, composed of silicon-based humanoids with crystalline skin and emotionless tone, had not issued a statement at all. But their delegation's body language during the execution feed was calm, passive, composed. King narrowed his eyes. They knew. Sir? Nassar asked. The Dravanti, the Irkan, possibly the Varkathi too. They weren't surprised. They didn't flinch. They watched it like a formality. King turned. Add them to the watch list. All communication nodes, resource movement, diplomatic appointments, anything out of pattern. Track it. Yes, sir. He took one last look at the map. 14 red lights pulsing in silence. This isn't a strike, King said. It's the rebalancing of truth. And somewhere across cold void and shifting gravity wells, the gears of Earth's hidden war machine began to turn. Not with fire, but with intent. A relay burst from the Crixon belt, shattered protocol silence. Encrypted in 5 layers, fragmented across 2 decoy beacons, and routed through a defunct mining node, the signal was picked up by Commander Jace Marlowe inside an abandoned refinery rig orbiting the ice moon of Halvaris. As the packet decrypted, Marlowe's eyes narrowed. The code was unmistakable. Project Asher, Phase 1. Immediate action. Execute under blackout. He stood, the rusted deck creaking beneath his boots. No sirens, no countdown, just movement. Across the galactic plane, 14 cells lit up in synchrony. Human units embedded in forgotten corners of neutral space, activated simultaneously without a single open command. They moved not as soldiers, but as surgeons. Their presence was a myth until now. In the Moradin Drift, Cell 10, operating under Captain Felix Grant, slipped past a ghost trade route and infiltrated a data buoy used by the Council's Sector 5 Logistics Command. The buoy's AI resistance lasted 4 seconds. On the 5th, it began looping false freight manifests, supply lines rerouted to empty quadrants. Thousands of tons of Council rations disappeared into phantom depots. Nobody questioned it. Not yet. 3 systems over, in the Veltrin Expanse, a team led by Lieutenant Armand Kessler breached the core node of the consular relay on Station Kravix, a structure operated jointly by Council-affiliated mediators and private mercantile guilds. No weapons were fired. The station's defense grid never activated. They didn't need to. They replaced the diplomatic announcements with archived transmissions, proof of bribery, forced population displacements, and falsified environmental reports. One video showed a consular envoy overseeing the liquidation of a refugee dome on Lorax 7, silencing dissent over mining rights with atmospheric venting. The footage played on local terminals, waiting room hollows, and even the station's central atrium dome. By the time authorities noticed, the data had already spread across 12 jump lanes. Meanwhile, orbiting Arcanil, a neutral moon just outside Council jurisdiction, a cluster of satellites blinked to life under Commander Ronan Leventhal. Designed decades ago as covert interceptors, they now functioned as intelligence slicers. Leventhal's team monitored Council diplomatic pings in real time, peeling layers of coded instructions, watching the panic ripple outward. Crosslink Node 8 confirms localized blackout in the Kadrix system, his comms officer reported. They're jamming their own sectors to prevent further leaks. Good, Leventhal replied. They're afraid. Back on Luna, in the command chamber buried beneath the Shackleton crater, General Earl King monitored every thread. He stood alone in the dim light, a single display table illuminating his weathered face. The red outlines of each cell pulsed steadily, signals that they were alive, active, and undetected. Connect me to all field leaders. Secure line. Override Alpha 6. Within moments, 14 images projected into the chamber, each flickering with low-band clarity. Captains, operatives, and ghosts who hadn't been seen on Earth in over a decade. You've all seen the footage, King said, voice level. Connor is gone. The Council made its move. No one responded. No one needed to. This isn't vengeance. This is strategy. Do your work. Be precise. Be invisible. If this goes loud, we lose everything. The screens blinked out one by one as each commander acknowledged the directive. On Dareth 3, a dry, wind-scarred planet home to the Vorali species, long subjugated by Council trade laws, a stolen transmitter came online inside a maintenance dome. The Vorali were bipedal, lean, with skin patterned in ash-gray fractals and large eyes adapted to low light. For centuries, they had served as logistical drones and low-tier functionaries. Tonight, they spoke. A cluster of 5 stood before the transmitter, broadcasting without protocol, without encryption. Their speech was raw, unpolished, translated by an aging Earth-made interface with audio degradation. To the humans, we saw it. We saw what they did. We have known silence. We have swallowed it for generations. You did not. For that, we thank you. The signal lasted only 90 seconds before Council scramblers cut it, but the damage was done. The packet had already been mirrored and shared across private uplinks. Within an hour, it appeared, illegally, on 8 systems. In the Mur Conclave, a station constructed around a crystal moon and inhabited by the Threxari, a species of hive-minded photoreactive organisms, the signal was analyzed, confirmed, and stored. They didn't broadcast support. They simply filed the message under inspiration and assigned it a cultural rank previously reserved for acts of revolutionary defiance. In the Galdor Fringe, a region known for mercenary enclaves and drifting trade fleets, questions began to rise. Council patrols increased. So did their silencing protocols. Yet every system that flickered with suppression birthed another whisper. The humans didn't strike first. They exposed. Not all responses were sympathetic. On Zelphi Station, operated by the insectoid Avaric Consortium, whose delegation had not flinched during Hensley's execution, Council-aligned militias cracked down on human-linked merchants. 2 trade envoys disappeared. 1 reappeared without his hands. But for every suppression, a response emerged. Somewhere between the Tragan Stretch and Sector 12, Captain Declan Shaw's unit disabled a listening post masquerading as a convoy. No explosion. Just a clean cut of signal, followed by an injection of carefully crafted misinformation. Council fleet positions reshuffled to chase false alarms. By the time the post was recovered, 3 hours of blind spots had opened, enough to redeploy strike teams into orbital shadows. Inside Luna Command, Colonel Zhang stepped in quietly beside King. "Sir, the Council is rotating leadership meetings. Emergency security protocols enacted. They're trying to reassert control without making it look like panic." "Which means they're losing grip," King said. Zhang hesitated. "Populations in 4 outer systems are calling for referendums, independence, or neutrality." King didn't look away from the screen. "And," Zhang straightened, "they're citing us, Earth, as the example." That word lingered. Example. King exhaled once through his nose, then let them watch, closely. He reached for the console and entered a new directive. Not a strike, not a broadcast. A slow bleed, financial leaks, unauthorized transfers, backdoor treaties, every brick in the wall the council had built to hold power. He didn't smile, but he nodded. Earth wasn't rising through fire. It was unraveling the lie, thread by thread. A spike in relay traffic across the Quarus Junction hit Luna Command at 04:17 UTC. Inside the war room, the analysts were already awake. They had been for days. Sleep came in short bursts, between decrypt cycles and signal captures. The pulse from Quarus wasn't random. It was a cluster of back-channel communications buried beneath trade signatures. Someone high-level was panicking, and they were using diplomatic masks to cover it. General Earl King stood at the center of the operations dome, watching as the data stream split across the holotable like blood through glass. "Run it again," he ordered. Technician Marcus Dren tapped his console, isolating the traffic. "Origin traces to a consular node within the Caltris central stack, not a civilian channel. This came through a secure relay reserved for executive use. Destination? Fragmented, routed through Drevan, then to a relay just outside Varkathi space. We're working on correlating." Colonel Zhang approached from the side. "We pulled a cross-match. 3 spikes like this occurred in the 24 hours before Hensley's execution." King didn't look up. "And none of them were flagged by the Council's public logs?" Zhang shook his head. "Buried, which means it was internal." King's voice dropped. "Or coordinated." At the far end of the room, Intelligence Chief Nolan Nassar stepped forward, a bundle of files projected in layered holograms over his left forearm. "We've confirmed duplications of encrypted communications between the Alto Chancellor and known intermediaries in the Dravanti core. Packet signatures match a restricted comms protocol used only by the Council's Intelligence Oversight Committee." "That's black level," King muttered. "No civilian trace, and not authorized for use between species without unanimous Council consent," Nassar added, "which never happened." Harold Veltri, standing near the strategic planning interface, clenched his fists. "That's collusion. You can't bury black-level ops without help from at least 3 other consular branches." "We're well past burying," King said flatly. "Now we dig." Zhang brought up another feed. Financial movement logs, data skimming, and AI-traced economic trails. These are from the Varkathi central banks. 1 week prior to the ceremony, 6 silent transfers were routed through Trade Shell Core, tied to security logistics for the Council event. Veltri leaned in. "Meaning?" King answered. "Meaning someone paid for the stage before Hensley even stepped onto it." More overlays, more names. One by one, the web began to take shape. The Dravanti core, with their crystalline skin and emotionless governance structures, had funneled diplomatic credits under cultural grant masks. The Urkan Dominion, ever quiet beneath their bioluminescent calm, had pledged resource shipments under a peacekeeping readiness initiative, signed off by Irkan officials known for their opposition to human presence near Irkan colonies. And the Varkathi, 4-legged strategists with obsidian-hardened plates and scent-based communication, had authorized contractual efficiency measures within the Council's logistics chain. Efficiency, in this case, meant silence, isolation, and death. King stepped back as the entire display swirled into a single, cohesive intelligence lattice. "This was never about protocol," he said. "It was a purge." Silence settled. Not out of shock, but recognition. "They orchestrated it because Hensley was about to be accepted," Veltri murmured. "Earth was ascending. They couldn't tolerate it." King nodded. "And now we show the galaxy the truth." He tapped the command interface, storing the entire data structure in a secure node, tagged Public Disclosure Sequence. Nassar approached, his tone more cautious. "Sir, this is enough to destabilize the Council permanently. You release this and there's no going back. No seat at the table. No renegotiation." "We're not asking for a seat," King replied. We're removing the table. In the command chamber's second tier, voices rose. The Earth Fleet Advisory Committee had arrived, dozens of commanders and admirals, each speaking over the other. The room filled with pressure. "Direct strikes!" roared Admiral Seth Valen. "We've got firepower orbiting 12 key worlds. Keltris can be turned to rubble before the hour ends." "The Chancellor's palace is shielded," barked Commodore Ivan Alcott. "But his escape tunnels aren't. Let us decapitate the snake." Others joined, less shouting, more insistence. Some called for symbolic destruction. Others wanted full-scale blockades. One demanded the raising of Keltris's orbital ring to burn the rot out by the roots. King waited, let it rise, then silenced the room with a single command. "Enough." The room locked on him. "You want to erase them," he said calmly. "You want to show the galaxy that humans don't bend." He stepped closer to the projection table, pulled up an image of Connor Hensley, his last official portrait, taken weeks before the ceremony. This man represented more than Earth. He represented restraint, judgment, resolve. He turned slowly, scanning every face in the room. "If we turn Keltris into ash, we prove their point. That humans are a threat, that diplomacy was a facade, that our presence in the Council was never about peace." Alcott crossed his arms. "You'd let them walk free?" "No," King said. "I'll drag them into the light." He tapped a new command. The projection shifted, showing the outline of Keltris, satellite paths, and critical communication nodes. "We will take Keltris, but not with fire, with exposure, with precision." He pointed toward the core node labeled Council Archives. "We hit their integrity, their truth. Every lie they've sold, every cover-up, every quiet extermination they sanctioned will be shown. And when the galaxy sees it, they'll realize what we already know." He paused. The Council never maintained order. It manipulated it. A slow, sober murmur moved across the room. Admiral Valen lowered his voice. "Then what do you propose?" King turned to Veltri. "Assemble the tribunal staff, civilian and military, species neutral if possible. We present everything on Keltris, on their soil, under open law. Let the galaxy see our process. Not vengeance, justice." Veltri nodded, then left the room without another word. King looked up at Hensley's image once more. "No one else dies for this. Not unless they force our hand." Then quieter to himself, so low only Zhang could hear it, and not like he did. The door to Strategic Command Alpha slammed shut behind Earl King. Inside, 12 senior officers and high-ranking officials filled the darkened chamber. No windows, no press, no room for optics. Only tension, thick as steel plating. Projected over the center of the circular table was a rotating image of Keltris. Planetary schematic, orbital ring, surface districts, and internal defense nodes. Red overlays blinked where intelligence had confirmed vulnerabilities. To most in the room, it wasn't a symbol, it was a target. "Full commitment is the only path forward," said Admiral Seth Valen, voice taut. "You have the fleet, you have the intelligence. If we don't strike now, we lose momentum." King remained standing. He didn't respond immediately. He scanned the room. Across from Valen sat Commodore Ivan Alcott. Lean, sharp-jawed, his uniform crisp to the millimeter. He spoke next. "We don't need orbital bombardment to end this, but we do need presence, boots, carriers. We establish control of Keltris, and the Council collapses under its own weight." To their right, Rear General Davin Hurst leaned forward, fists closed. "They executed a human envoy live on Universal Relay. They buried our diplomacy and spat on our restraint. Now you want us to play lawyer?" "I want us to win," King said finally. The room froze. "Win what?" Hurst asked. "Their approval? Their forgiveness?" King took a slow step toward the table. "No. I want to win something that lasts, something that doesn't rot 2 years from now." Valen shook his head. You're letting Hensley's ghost steer this ship. King's voice sharpened. You're damn right I am. Silence. He believed we could stand for more than survival, King continued. That we didn't have to mimic the worst examples just to be heard. He pointed at the image of Kael'tris. You want to storm that city? Fine. But when the rubble settles and the bodies cool, what do we become? He looked each of them in the eye. We don't just need to win. We need to win the right way. Commodore Alcott crossed his arms. We can't afford idealism, not now. It's not idealism, King replied. It's calculus. You bomb Kael'tris and the neutral systems recoil. You destroy their structures, and you become the thing we swore we weren't. He tapped into the console, bringing up footage, unreleased transmissions from the Vohrali uprising on Dareth 3. In one clip, young Vohrali, bound in chain cords, are marched out of a transit dome by council enforcers. No charges, no trial, just silence. This is what they've built, King said, and this is what we expose. General Hurst scoffed. And if the galaxy still turns its back? Then let them, King replied. But they'll do it knowing the truth. Veltri's voice crackled through a secured relay panel. The political wing's getting pressure. Civilian groups, planetary unions, they're split. Some want blood, others want proof. They're all watching us. King nodded. Then give them both. Show them the preparation, the will. But let the strike come from revelation, not wrath. Alcott exhaled. You're holding back a loaded cannon. I'm pointing it, King corrected. But only when the aim is justified. An alert tone rang from the adjacent terminal. Colonel Zhang stepped in. Authorization packet just cleared from Earth Security Assembly. Your plan, General. Conditional green light. King turned slowly to face the room. We move, he said. But not as conquerors. We go as arbiters. Not with flames, but with facts and force if needed. No unnecessary casualties. No collateral symbols. He paused at the door, glancing back once more. If we destroy Kael'tris, they'll call us monsters. And if we don't, Valen pressed. They'll still fear us, King said, but they'll respect the difference. That afternoon, operations shifted into motion. From Titan's orbital yards, the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet disengaged from dock, escorted by cloaked reconnaissance units and tactical insertion craft. In the halls of Europa Base, officers briefed fire teams not with kill orders, but with evidence protocols, jurisdictional overlays, tribunal protection logistics. They weren't preparing for conquest. They were preparing for exposure. On the Rimworld Bastion Reach, a council-sympathetic governor received an encrypted warning. Stand down or be documented. He folded within the hour. Inside Luna's secondary command tier, King reviewed the transmission packages, each tagged with authentication for independent media, neutral observers, and dissident networks. Every step of the campaign would be visible, traceable, defensible. Back in Earth's public spheres, the division deepened. Broadcasts turned bitter. On the debate floors of the Martian Continental Forums, delegations argued if Earth had gone too far or not far enough. One news node showed protesters marching in support of Hensley's legacy, their signs reading, "Justice, not fire." The next showed militia groups demanding the annihilation of the Council in its entirety. King ignored both. His war wasn't for them. It was for the silence after. The moment where no one could lie about what had happened. About who started it, and who finished it with discipline. As the fleet moved past Neptune's shadow and transitioned to FTL positions, King gave a final order to his command staff. Monitor all internal comms. Any attempt to act outside the framework, shut it down. This isn't about revenge, it's about truth. Then, with only Zhang remaining by his side, King returned to the strategy chamber. Alone, he stood in front of the Kael'tris projection once more. The city lights, the power grid, the shape of a civilization too long insulated by its own myth. "You taught us better," he said softly. And for the first time, his jaw tightened, not from control, but from grief. Caltris vanished behind the glare of refracted starlight as the last human dreadnought exited FTL over the system's primary orbital lane. Within minutes, the grid sealed. In high orbit above the planet, human vessels formed into formation. 18 capital ships, 72 support cruisers, and over 400 auxiliary crafts, each holding position like teeth of a closing trap. No weapons fired, no warnings issued, just presence. Absolute, deliberate, and immovable. From the bridge of the UES Olympus, General Earl King stood at the central viewing platform, arms locked behind his back. The transparent hull canopy before him showed a pristine view of the planet. Caltris rotated slowly beneath, its atmosphere calm, surface gleaming with illusionary peace. No alerts were raised by the Council, not at first. "Sir," said Lieutenant Bram Keller from the comms pit below, "Caltris air traffic has ceased. Civilian transports grounded. Military orbital patrols withdrawn into lower orbit. They're not engaging." "They're afraid to misstep," King replied without turning. Rear Admiral Thomas Rain entered from the side corridor. "Inner defense stations have powered weapons systems. Targeting data shows they've locked onto 2 of our frigates. Low threat, posturing only." "Log it," King said, "but do nothing." At 700 Galactic Standard, a Council distress signal pinged across the system, encrypted in high diplomatic frequency, marked with maximum urgency. The source, Caltris Central Relay Tower, under the direct command of the Alto Chancellor. "Interception confirms transmission headed for public comms in the Ricerian and Crixon sectors," reported Keller. "He's attempting to reframe the situation." King nodded once. "Kill the signal. Bounce the bounce back with mirrored headers. Let them know we're watching." "Sir, that'll flag our override capabilities to half the core systems." "Let them see," King said, eyes still on the planet. "Let them all see." In response, the Chancellor's next message was rerouted through 6 proxies. King's cyber division neutralized them one by one. Then silence. Then a new tactic. A diplomatic skiff launched from the surface, unarmed, marked with neutral colors. Aboard, 2 representatives from the Varkathi and Irkan delegations. They sent a simple plea on open channel. "We request audience, mediation, restoration of dialogue." King didn't respond immediately. He leaned toward his tactical console and accessed the profile histories of both diplomats. Varkathi, Minister Edax Thul, logistics strategist responsible for Council military transport. Irkan, Coordinator Sho Lion, voice of external communication oversight. Both names appeared in earlier intelligence packets. Both linked to the funding lines that led to Connor Hensley's execution. "Denied," King said flatly. "Log their attempt. Mark them as actors." Admiral Rain raised an eyebrow. "That will echo." "I want it to." The skiff hovered at the edge of Earth Fleet's outer perimeter. None of the human vessels engaged. None opened hails. The skiff eventually turned and vanished from view. 10 minutes later, a ripple of activity stirred below Caltris's upper atmosphere. Civilian broadcasts shut down. Planetary channels scrambled. King's team intercepted a partial transmission from the Chancellor himself, directed toward internal colonies. "This act of aggression is unfounded. The Terran forces have overstepped." The feed cut. Across the galaxy, stations flickered. Not with fear, but with curiosity. Why was Caltris so quiet? Why were there no countermeasures? Why was Earth not firing? Inside Olympus, the silence reached its peak. Captain Jord Talvek approached King's platform. "Sir, cameras are live. Civilian systems outside the core are watching. Word's already spreading. The Council is locked down, and you haven't moved a single cruiser." King turned to Talvek, calm and clear. "That's the point." He stepped forward, activating the central bridge transmitter. "Patch through the wideband," King said. "Encrypted relay. Global drop." "Aye, sir." The light above the console turned green. King didn't prepare. He didn't rehearse. He just spoke. This is General Earl King of the Terran Strategic Command. Across systems, terminals blink to life. On freighters, on refugee outposts, on independent colonies and merchant rings. Every network Earth had touched in the last century came alive. We came in peace. We were ignored. We spoke with respect. We were silenced. He let the silence fill the line. You executed Connor Hensley before the eyes of the galaxy, a diplomat, a man of integrity, a voice of restraint. His jaw locked. Now the galaxy will see who truly broke the order. He cut the transmission. No flourish, no rally cry, just the truth, laid bare. In orbit, Earth fleet did not move. No ships advanced, no missiles launched. They simply waited, still and poised, surrounding Kyltris like a verdict yet to be read. Back inside Olympus, Rain turned slowly toward the command table. "Sir, they're paralyzed." King spoke quietly. "Let them feel it. Let them choke on the silence they forced on us." As the rotation of Kyltris brought the Council's main spire into view, high-resolution optics tracked minor evacuations. Small crafts departing under diplomatic tags. No resistance, no message, just withdrawal. On the political boards, the reaction began. The Taliarn Fracture, a cluster of independent trade worlds, issued a hold on all Council-backed freight. The Talari Federation began internal reviews of their Council treaties. The Virali, for the first time in recorded history, voted unanimously for sovereignty status, all without a single shot. King remained still, his silhouette outlined against the pale light of the planet. This wasn't war. It was reckoning, slow, surgical, and absolute. The order came in one word: evacuate. General Earl King gave it from the command deck of the UES Olympus, eyes fixed on the surface of Kyltris. Within moments, coded relays triggered an orchestrated withdrawal. Human squads already stationed at the Council complex began guiding Council staff and auxiliary personnel out of the central spire. No weapons drawn, no shouting, just precision. By the hour's end, the once impenetrable heart of interstellar authority stood hollow. From orbit, the Olympus locked targeting data. The building was vast, 12 tiers of stone steel, ceremonial architecture designed to dwarf. But no amount of grandeur could hide what it had become. King watched in silence as the confirmation code flicked green. Execute. A single plasma lance arced from the dreadnought's lower barrel. Blue-white energy sliced cleanly through the upper sky, breaching atmosphere without resistance. No explosions. No debris scattered to civilian zones. The Council chamber collapsed inward, layer by layer, until the entire structure caved into a smoking basin of fractured alloy and vaporized legacy. King did not flinch. He did not turn away. He simply stood, watching the black plume rise into Kyltris's pale sky. Beside him, Captain Jord Talvik lowered his head slightly. Target eliminated. No casualties. King gave a small nod. Justice begins where myth ends. 2 hours later, at ground level, a mobile tribunal platform was assembled directly over the ruins. There were no banners, no sigils. The dust still hung in the air. Debris remained where it had fallen. Tables were simple, structures temporary. But the eyes of the galaxy were watching. Delegates from over 30 species filled the perimeter. Some came physically, others via high-fidelity holograms. They stood shoulder to shoulder, some in traditional robes, some in military armor, others in forms only vaguely humanoid. The Vohrali ambassador, Shil Ras Khan, blinked his black, pupilless eyes slowly, his skin dappled with shifting ash tones of uncertainty. The crystalline representatives of the Dravanti watched without emotion, their mirrored skin flickering as data passed between their shared hive consciousness. The tribunal was led by Justice Charles Brack, a retired Terran legal commander known for refusing battlefield promotions in favor of diplomatic integrity. He wore no rank insignia, only a dark suit, and the recorded law tablet strapped to his forearm. King took no seat. He stood behind the prosecution table, flanked by Veltri and Colonel Zhang. Across from him, the Alto Chancellor stood surrounded by his remaining loyalists, Varkathi Minister Edax Thul and Irkan Coordinator Sho La-en among them. They looked smaller now, less adorned, their ceremonial plates dulled with dust. Justice Brack began without preamble. This tribunal convenes to present factual evidence related to the death of Ambassador Connor Hensley and the preceding actions leading to the breach of diplomatic integrity by the Council High Seat. He gestured to King. King nodded once, and Veltri initiated the first sequence. The screen behind them came to life with the raw, unedited footage, Hensley at the podium. His voice steady, his words measured, the interruption, the accusation, the silence, the execution. No narration, no effects, just the truth. There was a shift in the audience, not audible, but visible. Even the Talari emissary, long, neutral, amphibious with semi-transparent skin and bioluminescent veins, tightened his mouth flaps, a cultural sign of discomfort. Veltri continued, loading the second package. These documents were recovered from internal council communications, unlisted, not made public. They show a coordinated effort to suppress discussions around Earth's full council admission. Specific signatures include Minister Thul and Coordinator La-en. The screen split with dates, protocols, internal memos. The Chancellor raised his voice for the first time. These are forged. Terran intelligence operations have long possessed the means to simulate our command signatures. You'll have your turn, Brack replied. Next came the financial records, transactions masked through trade shells, routed across Dravanti exchange webs, timed precisely with fleet movements and event planning for the Keltris ceremony. Thul interjected, his thick, jointed arms flaring outward. Security funding, allocated through legitimate council channels, Sho La-en added, and none of it authorized death. None of us sanctioned violence. Their voices grew louder, not unified, defensive, disjointed. Some delegates shifted, others watched in silence. The Talari emissary whispered something to the Murian envoy, a long-bodied serpentine with metallic scales that shifted like oil. The Murian said nothing, but blinked once, slow. Agreement. King raised his hand. Permission to submit final evidence. Brack nodded. Zhang keyed in the access. The lights dimmed. This footage, King said, was obtained through an orbital satellite assigned to communications backup during the Keltris ceremony. The satellite had passive listening functions engaged at the time of the execution. The screen showed a static shot, council chambers, private corridor, audio only. The voices were unmistakable, the Chancellor's, Thul's, La-en's. The timestamp, 14 minutes before Hensley stepped onto the stage. No need for protocol, the Chancellor's voice said. Deliver the charge directly. The emotional impact is the weapon. The Council cannot risk another failed vote. Make it clean, make it public. Veltri froze the image. Dead silence in the tribunal. The hesitation vanished. The Talari emissary stood. The evidence is sufficient. My delegation supports the tribunal's authority. Then the Virali. As do we. One by one, species that had held their tongues began to speak. Justice Brack didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The tribunal finds the Chancellor, Minister Thul, and Coordinator La-en guilty of deliberate conspiracy, obstruction of diplomacy, and unlawful execution of a recognized emissary. He tapped his terminal. A global signal went live. Every screen, every station, every system, every language. The ruling echoed through the stars, unaltered, uncensored. The Chancellor did not speak again. He didn't resist. King said nothing more. He just watched the moment take shape, like Hensley would have wanted, not through domination, but through truth, delivered without compromise. The gavel had fallen, the sentence delivered, and still no one moved. The dust had not yet settled over the ruins of the council's great hall. Cracked tiles still steamed, Fragments of broken sigils and shattered diplomatic crests lay half-buried under ash. Across the square, where processions of power had once strutted in ritual, now stood silence. The great building that had symbolized unity for centuries was gone, reduced to heat and debris by a single focused strike from orbit. General Earl King stood at the edge of the crater. Behind him, the human delegation waited in disciplined rows. Officers, envoys, and tribunal personnel who had made history without firing a single shot in anger. His hands were clasped behind his back, boots planted firmly in the ash-covered soil of Kael'tris. The wind blew thin ribbons of black dust past his coat. He did not flinch. To one side, Colonel Zhang conferred quietly with Director Harold Veltri. Further back, the Interim Planetary Coalition delegates began their careful coordination. Voices low, gestures restrained. Among them, Shil Raskon of the Vohrali walked slowly through the field of wreckage, his long limbs moving with meditative precision, his skin pulsing gently in a pattern of mourning. The Murian emissary, coils partially coiled beneath a translucent heat-shielding mantle, simply observed, expressionless, but present. King didn't speak until the last of the tribunal's personnel had boarded the transports. When he finally moved, he gave only one order: begin the withdrawal. It passed without ceremony, no speeches, no anthem. The humans packed their equipment, sealed evidence containers, and deactivated perimeter drones. Only the massive uplink remained operational, mounted against a still-standing fragment of an exterior column. Its broadcast light blinked in standby. King approached it alone. He keyed in the relay code, pausing just long enough to ensure full connection across the major galactic networks. The command confirmation chimed. "This is General Earl King of the Terran Strategic Command," he said, voice calm, paced, heavy. "As of this moment, the Terran Union officially withdraws from the centralized structure formerly governed by the Galactic Council." Across the galaxy, screens lit up. From the industrial megadomes of the Jareth fields to the nomadic data barges of the Sinari clusters, people watched. No script, no scroll, no translation lag, just his voice. "We will no longer participate in an architecture built on silence and fear. The legitimacy of any institution depends on its ability to hold itself accountable. The Council failed this." He tapped in a secondary code. A series of transition signals lit up behind him on the broadcast graph. Effective immediately, all diplomatic responsibilities and peacekeeping mandates under Terran jurisdiction are transferred to the newly formed Provisional Interplanetary Coalition. We will support this transition, but we will not govern it. He paused. No further comments. The feed cut. King stepped back, the uplink going dark behind him. Minutes later, from the high stratosphere, signal flares streaked the sky in coordinated arcs. They marked the first wave of departure. From orbit, the UES Olympus issued final clearance to all vessels in Earth Fleet Command. Authorization packets authenticated. Departure vectors synchronized. The largest organized retreat in human military history was underway, and not a single defense system challenged it. Inside the Olympus, silence reigned across the bridge. Captain Jord Talvek stood at the forward station, eyes locked on the shrinking image of Kael'tris below. To his left, Ensign Darren Murray finished transmitting Earth's last encryption update to the relay satellites. Both men turned as the main command door hissed open. General King entered without a word. He crossed the chamber with slow, measured steps, approaching the wide viewport where the planet filled the lower half of the screen. The ash plume from the former council complex was still visible, thin, fading, curling upward like the last breath of a long lie. "All vessels report ready for FTL jump, sir," Talvek said, voice low. King nodded once. Behind him, footsteps approached. Commander Reeve Marston spoke first. "Authorization protocols are confirmed. All civilian tribunals dissolved. New coalition authorities will assume planetary jurisdiction in 22 hours. King gave no reply. After a pause, Ensign Murray finally broke the silence. "Did we do the right thing, sir?" King turned slowly, eyes hard, but not cold. "We didn't fire first. We gave them every chance. We sent diplomats. We spoke in rooms where no one listened. We waited, and they answered with execution. He looked to each man standing there. Connor Hensley believed we could be better than our history, not weaker, better. We had the tools to scorch this world. You all saw how close we came. He gestured toward the viewport. But we didn't scorch it. We uncovered it. The words hung there. Still, the question remained, unspoken, but burning. Was it enough? Commander Marston spoke again, rough-voiced. And if they return to the same tactics? If they rebuild the same system under new names? King turned his full body to face them. If they do, we'll be here. He took one step forward. And they'll learn what it means to test a justice that knows how to wait. No one responded. No one dared. For the first time since Hensley's death, something in King's expression broke. Just for a moment. A tension in the jaw. A narrowing of the eyes. Not grief, not regret. Something darker. Something held too long. Rage. The kind you only feel when what you lost can't be returned. He said nothing more. Behind him, the Olympus's systems hummed softly as the final countdown engaged. Across orbit, Earth fleet vessels blinked out one by one, folding into FTL jumps like disappearing notes from a song that was never meant to be beautiful, only honest. And then the Olympus was gone. Above Caltris, the sky was empty. The stars returned. The silence that followed would last for generations. Hey, you're still here. That's awesome. Hope you had a great time with the story. Remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really makes a huge difference to the channel. And hey, I've got something else for you. I've chosen another story that I think you'll really enjoy. Just click the card right here, or hit this one to jump into the full playlist. See you in the next one.